It's difficult to make a good horror movie, and we should applaud those who do it so flawlessly, with the likes of Ari Aster and Mike Flanagan paving the way for a new era of horror. However, it seems as though there are more and more bad horror movies being pushed out there, whether it be to capitalize on something that worked, or to pump out more mindless sequels because no one has an original idea anymore. These are the top 5 dumbest horror movie sequels part 3. Before we jump in, I just want to mention again that Lindsay has a brand new channel launching called Peach, so make sure you head over there. It will be linked in the description. Go subscribe and tell her top 5 scary videos sent you. With that, let's jump in. Coming in at number 5, we have Cabin Fever Patient Zero. Quite honestly, I didn't realize this movie existed until fairly recently, and I apologize in advance for having to tell you about it. But it's a warning, if anything, just don't watch it. Released in 2014 and directed by Care Andrews, Cabin Fever Patient Zero stars the likes of Ryan Donahue, Brandon Eaton, Gillian Murray, Mitch Ryan, Lydia Hurst, and Sean Astin. Yes, Sean Astin from Lord of the Rings, The Goonies, and Stranger Things. This is the third installment in the Cabin Fever series and follows a group of friends on a bachelor cruise in the Caribbean who stumble upon a research facility on a remote island where a deadly virus is unleashed. The group must find a way to survive before the flesh-eating virus consumes them all. Classic. Now, Eli Roth's original gross-out horror was excellent, with humor that appealed to horror audiences. I mean, Ty West's sequel even tried to do the same thing. Shame it was essentially a shot-for-shot remake. Both appealed to audiences though by breaking horror tropes. However, this movie opted for a predictable formula by including a Patient Zero. On top of that, the characters were all pretty much forgettable, with moments that were just downright embarrassing and scares that fell flat, destroying the element of horror. The fact that they were capable of making a movie so bad is what's truly impressive here. Coming in at number 4, we have Ghoulies II. For a movie that was terrible to begin with, Ghoulies certainly has far too many sequels that many of us had to suffer through, with Ghoulies II arguably being the worst. Released in 1987, Ghoulies II is the second installment in this ridiculous franchise, with the story being totally unrelated to the first movie. In this sequel, the Ghoulies hitch a ride with a carnival and end up inside of an amusement park funhouse called Satan's Den, my kind of place, with visitors believing the Ghoulies to be part of the attraction. However, they were wrong, of course, with people beginning to fall victim to the evil creatures. Honestly, even describing this movie feels like a joke, and this is before even referencing Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College. Ridiculous. Now, like I said, the original movie wasn't good. Not only did we have to sit through that, but then we had to sit through 3 more movies, all just as bad as the last. Someone out there decided these demonic creatures needed an entire franchise, and quite honestly, I hate that person. There's really not much else to say about this other than that it is a truly terrible movie, and please, whatever you do, don't find yourself stumbling down the Ghoulies rabbit hole. It's a dark and depressing place. Coming in at number 3, we have Psycho 4: The Beginning. First and foremost, it should be stated that the biggest mistake that happened to Psycho was having any form of franchise to begin with. The original movie is near perfection and a classic in the horror genre, but of course Hollywood loves capitalizing on profit, and that's what they did here. Released in 1999 and directed by Mick Garris, Psycho 4 is a made-for-television slasher starring the likes of Anthony Perkins, Henry Thomas, Olivia Hussey, and Warren Frost, with it following the early life of Norman Bates, which is essentially what Bates Motel did, just on a much grander scale and with a stellar script. However, this story, despite having a great cast, fell flat and fell hard. Not only is it the 4th film in the installment, it marks the final appearance by Anthony Perkins in the series, with him sadly passing away in 1992. Having one sequel to Psycho was redundant, but this was just a slap in the face to the horror community and Alfred Hitchcock, honestly. Psycho superbly conveyed to us in few words that Norman Bates was insane. Quite honestly, all it took was one look right at the end of the movie. The sequels to Psycho weren't horrific, but this one was simply an embarrassment, with the kid from E.T. taking on the role of a young Norman Bates and us learning that his mother was the one who ordered him to kill. The story itself just felt redundant, with the franchise constantly retreading over the same material. If you want to see a young Norman Bates become the killer we saw in the original Psycho, just watch Bates Motel. It's so good. Also Vera Farmiga. Coming in at number 2, we have Paranormal Activity 2. Now, I am certain there will be many who disagree with me about this movie, and many who argue that there are worse in the franchise. However, I'm going to discuss the root of the problem, the sequel that should never have even happened. Released in 2010 and directed by Todd Williams, Paranormal Activity 2 is technically a prequel and sequel to the 2007 Paranormal Activity movie, with the events taking place around 2 months before the events depicted in the first movie, as well as continuing after those events, if that makes sense. Starring the likes of Sprague Graydon, Brian Boland, Molly Ephraim, and Katie Featherston, Paranormal Activity 2 was a clear cash grab, and the highest grossing film on this entire list, which makes it the most frustrating. As we know, the first Paranormal Activity followed Katie and Micah, who began to experience a supernatural presence in their home. So the pair took it upon themselves to set up a camera and record the strange goings on, with things ending truly horribly for the couple. Now, the second movie follows the sister of Katie and her family, with it including a few more cameras, but it's essentially an exact replica of the first movie. Now, while the original wasn't anything to write home about, it certainly established the tone right at the beginning of the movie, to the point that we actually felt bad for Katie and Micah and their endless torment. Unfortunately, Paranormal Activity 2 did something that's referred to as jumping the shark, and created a cheesy and unbelievable horror, with the minimalist horror from the first being a distant memory. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Halloween Resurrection. I will never forget the time I was in New York and found this movie for sale in Marshall's. I will also never forget how disappointed I was, even at the age of 10 years old. Why I was buying that at 10? I don't know. Living the dream, apparently. I don't think my parents cared. Released in 2002 and directed by Rick Rosenthal, Halloween Resurrection is a direct sequel to Halloween H2O, and stars the likes of Busta Rhymes, Tyra Banks, Thomas Ian Nichols, and Jamie Lee Curtis, who appears in the movie for about 5 minutes, despite being front and center on the poster. Halloween Resurrection is the 8th installment in the franchise, with it once again following Michael Myers as he continues his murderous rampage through the town of Haddonfield. However, problems begin to arise when an internet horror show decides to use his home as the location for their show. Michael, as you would expect, isn't too happy about it. Now, despite the director of Halloween 2 returning for this installment, this movie was an absolute train wreck, and somehow managed to destroy everything its predecessors had done so well. Laurie Strode had become a fierce heroine in the Halloween franchise, with her quickly becoming one of the strongest and most admired female protagonists in cinematic history. However, Resurrection tosses that right out of the window, along with her character, quite literally. In a cheesy moment at the beginning of the film, Laurie Strode is thrown out her window by Michael, not before the big reveal coming that they are brother and sister. Shocker. It's lazy storytelling and completely unravels everything that was established in previous movies. The movie is quite literally a reality TV parody, which is a long way from the original and suspenseful Halloween terror that built the franchise. Even today, fans so desperately want Resurrection to be wiped off the canon. However, thanks to the latest movies, it has been. We can easily pretend this doesn't exist now thanks to the 2018 movie undoing the entire franchise and being instead a direct sequel to the original. Thank God. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? What's the worst horror movie you've ever seen? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 4. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 upcoming 2021 horror movies part 3. Scott Walker said Scream, and I know what you did last summer equals there is someone inside your house. Can't complain. I'm also very, very excited. I love Scream. I know what you did last summer. I like to go into everything with very low expectations, but I am excited for this movie. Not the Mama said, I had not heard about Nightmare Alley, but I'm definitely intrigued. Thanks, Lucy. You are very welcome. I had only heard about it because obviously I love Cate Blanchett, and then Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara reuniting after Carol. Wow, amazing. And also Guillermo del Toro. Mask Maker Gingy said, Lucy, our Dark Queen, you looking very smart in this video. All these films sound awesome. Looking forward to all of them. I agree. I'm also looking forward to all of them. Nearly all of them, for the most part. And thank you. I was wearing a blazer in that video. MadDag420 said, love the Resident Evil movies and Mila Jovovich. If you ever get to talk to her, tell her I said hi. Yes, I did mention that. She does follow me on Twitter. She does. Not that I've ever really engaged with. I did have a conversation with her once. It was years. It was like a decade ago. And it was about Sims. I think that's why she started following me. She needed advice. This is a real conversation. This is real. She was designing a home on Sims. She publicly tweeted that from her verified account and didn't know how to take a screenshot. I taught her to take a screenshot. Isn't that funny? Anyway, I love Resident Evil 2. Love it. Steve Cass said, will there be a sequel of Queen Lucy stroking her hair as she gives evil commands? 100%. I've been touching my hair throughout this whole video because it keeps getting in my face because it's so long, because hair salons are closed and I can't get a haircut. so that sucks. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bachelor cruise in the Caribbean. God, I'm becoming so North American. The original movie is near... Can't speak this morning. The original movie is near perfection and a classic horror...